Hello and welcome to my channel. Today, I'll show you a recap of an American biological war true life documentary. It's a story of bravery, courage, and sacrifice for others. It's a story where a person decides to give his life to his colleagues at the battlefield despite how they have offended him beforehand. Will he save his colleagues? Watch out and take care. The movie starts at the battlefield. The war is fierce and several soldiers are dying. One of the soldiers, Das Desmond, is injured and they all keep clamoring at him that he should stay with them. In a flashback to about 16 years ago, the two siblings of Mr. Das, Hal and Desmond Das, run after each other and compete for the first person to go to the mountain. They arrive on the hill to play. While they're on the mountaintop, someone watching them from the ground screams that they aren't meant to climb that high. The boys refuse to answer the man and the person beside him says, "Those are Das kids. They're just like their father." At that moment, their father, Das, is also shown. He's drunk and walking along the cemetery. When the kids get home, they fight with each other. Their father refuses to separate them as he watches them fight. Suddenly, Desmond takes a block and hits his brother, causing him to collapse. His parents treat him. After the event, Desmond goes to a poster of the 10 Commandments which says, "Thou shalt not kill." He looks at the poster till his dad comes to beat him. His mother begs his dad not to beat him, and then she goes to talk to him. She tells him that murder is the most erroneous sin, and the Bible rejects it. That night, the two brothers overhear their father arguing. 15 years later, Desmond is seen in the Seventh-day Adventist church alongside other members. They hear a call outside and run out. A boy has just gotten into an accident. Desmond uses his belt to stop the blood gushing from the boy and takes him to the hospital. While in the hospital, he meets Dorothy, a nurse in charge of blood donation. He falls in love with her immediately and donates blood because of her. The next day, he tells his mother that he's seen the lady that he's going to marry. He returns to meet her in the hospital and confess his love for her, and they both go to watch a movie that night. After the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, Desmond decides to enlist in the U.S. Army. His father, who was once a Great War veteran, is furious at his move. The next day, he meets with Dorothy again. They play on the mountain. He takes her back to the hospital. Before they depart, he tells her that he's going to enlist in the Army. To ensure he doesn't take anyone's life, though, he would enlist to join under medics. That way, he would be saving lives and not taking lives. Dorothy asks that before he leaves for the Army, he should marry her. His father, Tom, calls him and takes him to the burial ground where his old friends were laid after they died. He tells him that he and his friends enlisted together, but his friends didn't survive the fight. He begs his son not to enroll because he won't like the outcome. He specifically tells him the act of war doesn't align with Desmond's personal beliefs, but Desmond decides that he would enlist anyway. When his father realizes he can't convince him, he gives up on trying. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to marry Dorothy before he left. However, Dorothy does give him a Bible. Inside the Bible is Dorothy's picture and a note for Desmond. He arrives at the training site and they start training. He aces the physical training and he's hailed by the sergeant that he's very good. Unfortunately, when it's time to practice gunshots, he refuses to carry a gun. He's taken to meet the captain of the team, Captain Glover. He explains he's a Seventh-day Adventist member, so he doesn't believe in killing, and he cannot hold a gun. He also tells the captain that he doesn't work on Saturday as an Adventist member. Sarcastically, the captain tells him, "No problem, we'll just tell the enemies not to attack us on a Saturday." The captain knows that they can't accept his doctrine, and he has to do what they want. The captain, in return, tells him as long as he's in the training ground, he'll have to follow his own rules. He decides he'll discharge Das under Section 8 for a psychiatric reason, claiming his religious beliefs serve as a deterrent to his service to the country. Sergeant Howell takes him back to the team, telling his teammates about his ridiculous belief and telling them to respect him throughout his short stay with them. Sergeant Howell's words incite his unit mates that day. One of them attacks him, slapping him for his belief. Desmond does nothing in return but pleads with him to give him his noble back. An interrogation is held on Desmond, and he's certified mentally fit. Glover's report is thrown away with the decision that Desmond's spiritual beliefs don't count him unfit. Glover, however, is hell-bent on sending Desmond out. He feels that if he frustrates Desmond enough, then Desmond will leave, but he doesn't intend to give up. Desmond is beaten by his unit members, he's injured, and he gets the worst duties during the training, but he stands strong to his belief. After his unit finishes training, they're to be released on leave. Desmond planned to use his leave periods to marry Dorothy, but he wasn't allowed to leave unless he carries a gun. His refusal to carry a firearm led to his arrest on the charge of insubordination. While he's in prison, Captain Glover comes to persuade him. He begs him to leave the team by pleading guilty to the charge so that he can be released without any punishment, but Desmond refuses. Glover sees that he's adamant about his claims, so Glover brings Dorothy to persuade him. His father, Tom, also visits his former commanding officer, now a brigadier general, for help. At the martial court, Desmond pleads not guilty to the charge of insubordination. He's asked if he refused the order of his captain, and he says yes, but he has his reason. During his proceeding, his father arrives just before the judgment is read. His father brings a letter from the Brigadier General that the Constitution protects Desmond's beliefs and he is not to be convicted based on his beliefs. They withdraw the proceedings against him and Desmond is released. During his leave, he can marry his love, Dorothy. They return for the war. His unit is assigned to the 77th Infantry Division. When they get to their tents, some old soldiers who have been fighting the war come to join them. They ask about the war, and they're told that they had to climb the hacksaw, and every time they climb, the Japanese shoot them back down. They all leave for the battle the next day. When they get near the hacksaw, Glover briefs them on the war, and they all climb the hacksaw ridge, but the battle is intense. They lose the first day, and a lot of life is lost during the battle. As a member of the medics team that day, Desmond saves the life of his teammate, Smitty, getting back his respect from Smitty, who realizes he's actually a great person. That night, the U.S. soldiers return to their camp victorious. Smitty and Desmond sleep in the same hole together. Desmond gives Smitty his meal because he doesn't eat meat, and he tells Desmond the reason why he refuses to carry a firearm is because of his dad. Due to the mental effects of the war, his dad became addicted to alcohol, and one day, he brought out his guns and threatened to shoot their mother. That day, Desmond took the gun from his father and tried to shoot him. However, his mother stopped him from doing so. After hearing Desmond's story, Smitty tells him at least he met his dad. Smitty said his father died before he ever got to meet him, and his mother left him at the orphanage when he was 5 years old, so he never knew love. They got to know each other and reconciled. The next day, the Japanese launch a huge counterattack, leading to a great loss of life on the U.S. team. Smitty died in the process, and many others did as well. The remaining soldiers retreat and run down the Hacksaw Ridge. When Desmond is about to run down too, he hears the cries of different soldiers on the field. He gets the feelings he must go back to save them. He runs back to the battlefield, trying to rescue the soldiers. Glover counts the remaining soldiers who escaped, and they're just 32. He angrily goes back to the headquarters with the wounded soldiers. He asks the head to give him more men to get his soldiers from Hacksaw Ridge, but his request is rejected. Over the Hacksaw Ridge, Desmond rescues a lot of soldiers while hiding from the Japanese team. He'll tie the soldiers up in a rope and bring them down the ridge. He rescues some Japanese soldiers in the process. There's a time when he has to hide inside a tunnel from the Japanese team. While he's inside the tunnel, he sees a Japanese soldier wounded. He helps him and gets him down the ridge. At the headquarters, the medics team is shook and a lot of soldiers are coming back. They ask who rescued them and they all say it was Desmond. Information gets to Glover. He gets to the medics and sees many of the wounded soldiers, and he gets to know it's Desmond's handiwork. Desmond, the coward, pulled all these people down? He's very shocked to know that. Howell is also on the ridge, injured and wounded. Desmond drags Howell down the ridge, leaving Desmond at the mercy of the Japanese soldier. The soldiers open fire at him, but he succeeds in escaping and comes down. When he does, he sees Glover. Glover appreciates him for his hard work and asks that he should be treated at the medics because he sustained a lot of injuries. After he receives treatment, he sits under the tent with his Bible. Glover comes to meet him and apologizes for how he judged him without knowing him. He tells him that he's never been so wrong about a person, and he hopes one day Desmond will be able to forgive him. He tells him that they have to go back to the ridge the next day, but the next day is a Sabbath day. The other soldiers refuse to go up the ridge unless Desmond is ready to go with them, so he pleads with Desmond to please go on the ridge with them the next day. On the Sabbath day, the whole team lined up before the ridge, planning their attack. The superiors call Glover, asking him why they haven't attacked. He tells them the team is waiting for Desmond to finish praying for them. When Desmond finishes his praying, it's as though the whole team receives a refreshed energy. They go up the ridge that day, they fight, and they take over the hill. Desmond is injured, so he's taken down the ridge after the fight. After the fight ends, Desmond receives the Medal of Honor from the government. He becomes the first conscientious objector to receive the medal, as the medal is America's highest reward for courage under fire. In pictures, it's also shown that Desmond and Dorothy stayed married until Dorothy died in 1991. In 2003, some of the soldiers he saved gave testimony about his bravery, and he died on March 23, 2006, at the age of 87.